You talked about the personal toll that this is, all of these folks have felt this, this impact deeply. Your organizations have felt the impact. Egyptian civil society has felt the impact. And seeing as you have experience and firsthand knowledge of what is really happening there on the ground, can you tell us where you think, in a broader picture, where you think Egypt is going under Morsi? Which direction is it headed toward? Is there a chance for democracy left? Is that window rapidly closing? What should U.S. funding priorities in Egypt with respect to supporting civil society, the rule of law, building political parties, what role do you see us having there? And do you expect the pardon to come for all of the folks who have been sentenced? Do you expect the new NGO law to be implemented, to be passed, and that will further restrict your activities? So thank you. If anybody would like to take a stab at either parts of those. Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As far as where Egypt is going broadly, as Lauren mentioned in his testimony, it's a very troubled democratic transition, which I personally would describe as a suspended democratic transition at the moment. I still have a lot of hope for Egypt. A huge amount of political space has been opened up by the revolution. There are different parties contesting that space. You cannot count out the liberals and secularists whose views, after all, underpin the Tahrir Square revolution. It will be a long process and it will be a messy process, but it does require support from outside, political support and perhaps some aid support, especially for civil society. As you noted, the environment for civil society has become extremely difficult, and just how we can operate there, any of our organizations, as well as Egyptian organizations, especially in light of this new NGO law, is very problematic. But we're trying to think of some creative ways to engage civil society. Maybe that involves advocacy instead of work on the ground with organizations. But we're trying to figure that out ourselves right now. We have no expectations, our organization does not, of the legal process, including a pardon. We are hopeful that one will be granted, but that's what we're trying to think about right now. Thank you.
And you're convict number 40.
Defendant number 30.
Defendant number 30.
I was
yes.
a fugitive at the time. Now I'm a convict. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Lauren, would you like to take a stab at it?
You know, I've always said these transitions in the Middle East are going to take 10, 15, 20 years. This is not a very encouraging start for Egypt. You know, and I was just thinking while Charles was talking, if you tried to think of a Central European analogy, maybe you would think of Serbia, where the revolution was hijacked early on in the post-Soviet era. That's not a very encouraging story. I think the issue for us is 5, 7, 10 years from now, when I don't think the Egyptian economy will have taken off, given how it's being run, and Egyptians are looking for new kinds of policies. Will those be available to them? Or will they be stuck with, you know, with a government that is repressive and isn't producing anything economically? And I think it's important that the U.S. stay engaged, and Europe and others, to make sure that the Egyptian people do have choices if they want them, that it's a more open system. In terms of our particular case, a court appeal is only available in Egypt to people who were present for the trial. And you will recall that the foreigners, at the behest of the State Department, and we agreed with that at the time, left Egypt and were not present for the trial. The only way a foreigner can file an appeal is to present themselves at Cairo Airport, begin serving their 5-year sentence, and then they are free to appeal. To begin an appeal, and obviously that's not something we wish upon our staffers.
Mr.
So
Bullock,
an appeal is not a possibility.
I see that.
Madam Chairman, we're all in the optimism business.
Can you put a little closer to you?
We're all in the optimism business. And ultimately we believe that people all over the world, and that includes the people of Egypt, want the same thing. They want to put food on their table, they want to have shelter, they want to have jobs, and they want to have a political voice and a stake in their future. And every public opinion poll in Egypt and elsewhere shows that. So I believe in the long term, that will, that desire, those expectations of the Egyptian people will bear fruit. Lauren mentioned Eastern Europe. Let's not forget that 10 years after the fall of the wall, the war in Yugoslavia was just beginning. Milosevic was still in power. That these do take a long time, sometimes generational changes have to take place. But there are elements, I believe, some within the new government, some within the previous-led government, and now we see in the judiciary that represent a throwback to another era. And I think it represents Egypt's isolation and this insular attitude. I think that there are elements in the government, elements in other sectors of society that have a very different view. And I just think that we have to stay engaged and support those that want to build a democratic future for the country.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you, and I'm sorry I'm out of time. Mr. Connolly is recognized.